So we're starting out with a piece of red oak that I've already turned around and put a tenon on one end. It's about 7.5 inches long. I guess that's about 190 millimeters. We're going to chuck it up. Hi Milo, what a good boy. The blank is about 1.5 inches in diameter, or roughly 4 centimeters. Milo's reminding me to make sure your chuck is snugged up nice and tight. And we're bringing up the tailstock with the Jacobs chuck and a 10 millimeter drill bit. Energize about 450, 500 RPM for drilling. Dust collection on. So you want to advance the tailstock here, and I'm going to speed through this a little bit. I'm going to be sure to pull the bit out multiple times to clear out the sawdust as I'm doing here. I'm drilling to a depth of 2 inches or about 5 centimeters, which is plenty for these small detail tools. Next up, we have a cone live center, the tailstock. Bring that up. You just want to snug that cone center in there. You don't want to split your blank, so just make sure it's engaged and snugged in there to not be in too tight. Next up we have our brass ferrule. You can see one end on this one is the factory end, so I didn't have to deburr it. That factory end will go in first. Here I'm measuring the inside diameter, which is 23 millimeters. Now I'm transferring 23 millimeters from my micrometer to my outside calipers. And now that I think about it, you could just do this directly from the inside calipers and skip the micrometer. Coming up to speed here, for most of the turning, I'm running about 2,500 RPM. Using my skew chisel here with a peeling cut to remove material so we can get this ferrule on. Here I've switched to my smaller skew. It's a little easier to get in here. Spoiler alert, I'm not even close yet on the diameter. More peeling cuts here with the skew, trying to sneak up on that diameter. And then you notice here I flip the tool over and start doing a planing cut, try to smooth it out, taking off just a few thousandths at a time here. So at this point, I've decided that I've got the diameter where I want it, and the ferrule should go on now. turns out I didn't take off quite enough material, and the ferrule peeled some back, so now I need to fix that. So I figure I can shave that back with my skew chisel, which you see me attempting here, trying very hard not to contact my skew on the brass ferrule. This isn't really working, so now I do what I should have done in the first place and get my thin parting tool and cut back just a hair off the edge of the blank there and come right in next to the ferrule, and that cleans it up nicely. That looks pretty good. I'm satisfied with that now, so onward. So I want to start here at the end and round over this corner to make the transition down to the ferrule. And here I'm starting out using my 3/8 inch skew. But just to show you that you can also use a spindle gouge here, I switched to my 1/2 inch spindle gouge. And here you see me doing what I should have done in the first place before rounding over the shoulder, and that is shoring up the cylinder with a planing cut from my 3/8 inch skew. So I want to do a little planning and layout here. So the diameter of the blank right now is about 40 millimeters, so I want to establish a diameter right around the center of the handle of a little more than half of that. So I set my outside calipers to 25 millimeters and eyeball the center of the handle and cut down to that diameter, again around 25 millimeters. So now that acts as a guide to where I want to cut down to there in the middle of the handle from both ends. So at this point we just want to remove some material. So here you see I'm using a peeling cut again with the skew. And now I'm using a planing cut to try to cut down to that diameter. I would probably use a skew chisel for most of this shaping and stock removal, just because I like practicing with the skew chisel, but I'm going to switch to the roughing gouge here now. And with this you can really get down to the diameter there in the center and do some quick shaping. I decided it was a little too thick there up at the front, so remove some material there and I will come back with, again, with my 3/8 inch skew to smooth this out with planing cuts. Notice here at the high point, I'm using the very tip of the skew to cut in. That gives you a little more control and avoids a catch. I'm doing this going both directions. You see I'm doing it again here. At this point, I realize I've gone a little too far on my cut, and it's not going to meet the ferrule exactly as I want it to, so I'm going to do a little touch up here with the skew and the parting tool, and then I will slide that ferrule back just a couple millimeters so that it is flush with the shoulder. Now I'm cleaning up the other side here, again with the planing cut with the skew, which gives a nice smooth finish. And now I'm going to mark the end of the handle here. Little readjustment of the tool rest. Using a V-cut here to remove some material. And once again using the point of the skew to round over here. It's just like rounding over a bead. So now I'm coming back and doing some finishing cuts, some more planing cuts with the skew. I'm pretty happy with the shape at this point. I'm just trying to even out any small imperfections with the curve. Now, before I take any more material off the end, I need to fix that ferrule. And I do that with another ferrule on top and just tap it down into place. That looks good. Now we'll remount the handle back in the chuck, turn off that little bit sticking out there. We'll use the skew for that. So I sanded starting with 180 grit and going to 240 and then 320. I turned off the lathe, sanded with the grain to take out any scratches, and then I used some Dr. Kirk's polishing wax. I applied that with a paper towel with the lathe running very slowly, and then sped up to around 2000 to polish it off. While you're doing this, be sure to hit the brass ferrule with the polishing wax, but don't go from the ferrule back onto the wood or you'll make your wood black. So now it's time to part off the handle. I start with my thin parting tool just to give myself some clearance because I want to get in here with my skew to finish off the curve at the bottom of the handle as much as possible. So that looks good. Now we can do a little final sanding there at the end where I was just cutting, and a little dab of wax there at the end while we can still use the lathe to polish it off. So it's time to part off the handle now. I'm giving myself just a little more clearance here with my thin parting tool, and then I'm going to come in with my skew and slice this off. And there you have it. It's a small handle, about 7 inches overall, but plenty long enough for the small detail tool that we made it for. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped.